a Vegas runner. I'm Johnny Detroit, the People's Champ. We're going to go as close to 8 o'clock as possible, so let's get right to it. First thing, Vegas runner. Quickly, who he is. VR, I know a lot of these guys were on the last webinars. I can look at the analytics. There's probably about a quarter of the people watching this right now. This is their first webinar, so obviously it's the first one with you. So we're not going to turn this into a long VR movie like the first time we had John. In about a minute and a half, give me the whole row house to the penthouse story. And
row house to the penthouse. I fucking love that, bro. But
hey, the best part is, honesty, all right, hey, real quick, I came up with that line. RJ keeps using it. I'm like, I go, I'm gonna start charging you like $10 every time I hear somebody say that. But go ahead.
Yeah, he was saying that. I forget who we were talking to and shit, but it was funny. If you got a minute, seriously, I think in that thread in Pregame forums where we have the webinars, I'd go back and listen to the first one me and Johnny did, where it was more of a introduction, talking about how I got into the industry, how I got into the betting industry as a whole, not just involved with Pregame and involved in moving my own stuff, but just the way I came up from bookmaking to eventually moving Steam to then coming out here to do that exact thing. But we also covered just a little bit of Vegas life, a lot of the blackjack exploits when I was playing team blackjack for a little over a year, as an advantage player. So there's some good stuff in that first one, man. Bottom line, I'm a sports bettor, just like everybody else on this call. Only difference is, and I'm sure it's not different, a lot of you as well got into the game real early, and most of us, truth of the matter is, the problem is we learned how to bet from squares. It's like squares teaching squares how to bet, and that's awful. But for me, I got into bookmaking, so I didn't have to go down that route. I didn't travel that route. And instead, I booked action. And eventually, Philly's one of those towns where it's known to have a lot of movers. A lot of money gets moved through Philadelphia. Everyone's got steam, man. I mean, it trickles down to where it's like your girlfriend's brother's boss ends up getting the game 3 hours later. So it's just one of those cities. And I eventually started moving steam for some of the most well-known betting syndicates, from the Kosher Kids to Billy Waters, all the guys that were needed movers to get down on their games, the best handicappers on the planet at that time.
Yeah, real quick, do you it's Billy Walters, or is it just that Philly accent when you say Walters it comes out Waters?
Maybe it's a Philly accent. Yeah, we had a red phone for him, believe it or not. He had the red phone. When that phone rang, it was his game, because obviously back then he was the man, So yeah, that's who we were moving his games, everyone's games more or less, Johnny, the people that were pretty much manipulating the market back then. But anyway, make a long story short, everybody was chasing the same dime. You run out of outs. You could only beat the same outs through so many different names. And I got the opportunity to come out here in Vegas and do that. So I've been here ever since. Eventually, went on, started doing my own things instead of moving for others. And that led me to where I met RJ in Pregame. And his vision was to actually have professional bettors share their information and not just be marketers. And, here I am 5 years later.
5 years later, what we're going to do is one of the things at Pregame that I think makes us a little bit different is the fact that it's not always about winning in terms of, and everyone's like, what? What do you mean not about winning? When I spend my money with you guys. And what I mean by that is nobody wins all the time. And then there's going to be rough stretches. And the thing is, this isn't back in the 80s. And I knew a lot of guys who worked phone rooms. And I used to hear stories about, depending on where the area code was, they'd split it down the country. And if it was Notre Dame, Michigan, they'd give half Michigan, half Notre Dame. I heard stories of what they did one time. They, on their free score phones, they would say, call the office and get the SEC game of the year absolutely free, no questions asked. And they would take the phone off the hook. Everybody would get a busy signal. This is prior to the internet. So if a guy in Kentucky was calling, a guy in Michigan was calling, you had a busy signal. In the old days, people are now like, younger kids like, what's a busy signal? Everybody, phone always clicks into something. Back then, in the olden days, you get a thing called a busy signal. So they'd take the phone off the hook. And Sunday, when they updated their lines for Sunday, he said they would look at the scores, they'd find the biggest SEC blowout. And then when they would go on the phone for their score form for Sunday football, they would say, thanks to everybody who got through, our free game of the year was Florida over Kentucky, won by 70, easy winner. And everyone who got the busy center was like, shit, I missed that winner. Obviously, it's total BS. They picked the game the following day. Then they would say, our same sources on a big game today in the NFL, call the office, get this winner for $50. And of course, obviously, at that point, they're going to answer the phone and take your $50. Well, today with the internet, that way of doing business doesn't work anymore. At least on a large scale, like Pregame is, and with the media that we have. So what we're going to do is, and VR's probably cringing, like, hey, you're ambushing me here, Johnny. Is the fact is this: I'm not stupid. You're not stupid. VR's not stupid. You had a game of the year. You had a rough stretch after an amazing run. So we're going to start off with how to deal with a losing streak. And, this is the facts. In football 2012 VR, you're 59% against the spread, which anybody with a elementary math education will tell you that means you've lost 41% of your football games. If after 205 plays, documented and released at pregame, and if anybody is going to try being shifty with what they say their record is, you're the last one who ever could, even if you were that kind of person, because you got more haters than Romney and Obama did during the election. And there's guys who go over everything you say and do with a fine-tooth comb. You're up 44 units. So it doesn't change the fact you lost your game of the year. It doesn't change the fact you had that rough run. But you know what? When you have 200-plus plays and you're 59%, you make 40 units, you're going to have 5-0 runs. You're going to have 0-5 runs. You're going to go 4-1, 1-4, 3-2, 2-3, and the band plays on. So my question to you, VR, is I know that, you took it as a double-edged sword. One, the amount of money you lost on a, short, bad run after a sick, amazing winning run. And the fact you do care about your clients, you care about your image, you care about your brand. I mean, I see how much you're on Twitter taking the time to respond to a lot of people, and you got more followers than me. And I know it affected you personally that game lost. I was at the bar with my wife, and you were texting me a lot saying they better score here. I can't believe that just happened. Like, give me enough play-by-play. So enough babbling from me. So for our listeners, what's your best advice that you could give them, either now for what you do selling picks and betting, and even back when you used to move money, that these inevitable losing streaks are going to happen? What's the best way to deal with them?
No, here's the thing, man. Thank God I'm so fortunate to be in a position where I don't have to lie to people as far as what I do with pregame. And because, I'm not saying everybody needs extra money. Everyone needs the money. But fortunately, I'm in a position where if I don't sell another pick tomorrow, my lifestyle is not going to change too much. So I don't have to go on here and lie to people. I don't have to go on Twitter and lie to people. I don't have to go on the pregame and lie to people. I could tell it like it is. And because of that, you're right. A lot of people are going to hate. A lot of people are going to see through that and respect it and say, at least he's trying to tell it like it is. Whether I agree with it or disagree with it, whether I like it or don't like it, at least he's coming out and telling it to us how he sees it. And the bottom line is this, man. The only thing I hate about this industry is that it was built on one of the weakest foundations. And what I'm trying to say is it was built on nothing but misconceptions, where people think you got to be 80% to make a living betting. You got to be 70% to make a living betting, or even you got to be 60% to make a living betting. And that's such bullshit. I mean, I moved for the sharpest bettors at a time when information wasn't as readily available, when sportsbooks weren't able to look at their line service and see that Chris Pinnacle, the Greek, got hit with a sharp play so they could move their line and not get hit as well. Now they see it, they move it, a sharp can't even get into them. So this is a time when it was even more beatable, and I could promise you that these guys were not hitting at the clip that the industry claimed they hit, 80% this football season and bullshit like that. And that's what I hate most about this industry. And at the end of the day, what we do is we sell information. As much as I want to be a source of information, I know that at the end of the day, how I'm graded is on results. The education is great, the entertainment's great, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to my results. And if you sit there and you try to explain to people that the difference between a winning sports bettor is that he could hit 11 out of 20, and the difference between a losing sports bettor is he could only hit 10 out of 20, it's just one game out of 20 separates someone that could make a living betting sports from someone that'll go broke betting sports. They don't want to hear it. But the bottom line is that's what it is. That's the math of it. I didn't come up with it. I didn't create it, but that's the mathematical certainty of this racket. If you go 10-10, you will go broke eventually. The VIG's going to eat you up. Mm-hmm. If you go 11-9, you could get rich if you manage your money correctly. But with that said, just because you could go 11-9, which is 55%, that doesn't mean you're going to go 11-9 every 20 bets and be up 2 games minus VIG. Over a course of 1,000 games, you're going to have stretches where you go 2-18, and you're going to have stretches like I did before that game of the year when I went 18-2. But if you think you're going to be able to maintain it and sustain it, stop betting now and realize you're doing it for entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. But entertainment costs money. If I want to go to the club, I'm going to spend money unless I could get it comped. If I'm going to go to the movies, if I'm going to go to a bar, wherever I'm going to go, I'm going to spend money. That's what entertainment is. If you're going to bet sports for entertainment, then your bookie's going to take your money. There's no way around it. But if you're going to bet to make money, then you better know going in that you're going to lose, and you're going to fucking lose a lot. Because at the end of the day, you're going to lose 9 out of every 20 bets long term.
Even if I wanted to try putting a muzzle on you with the F-bombs, I don't think it would work. So
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to you. I'll be a lot more conscious of that. But seriously, in the long term, that's what you could ask for. I'm having a great football season. It's 59%. Before last weekend, I was up over 60%. That to me is as good as I could do. I know that. And I'm hoping at the end of the season I could sustain that, maybe go up a little. I know a couple weeks I may go down a little. But if I could end where I am right now, if the season ended tomorrow, it would be such a huge success because of the fact I know what you should be doing long term. And I'm not here to tout myself. Like Johnny knows, at a Sports Monitor of Oklahoma, I had one of the best seasons ever of all time, where I don't even get monitored there no more. Over 1,500 plays, hitting it almost 57%. I know I probably can't duplicate that again. Because I've been doing this long enough to understand that I have a small edge. It's enough to overcome the VIG, but it's not enough to where you're going to wow people who think you got to hit 65-70% long term to make any money. And I'm so lucky that I have people that are willing to want to learn and understand this, because they don't just want to do it for entertainment. They do want to profit, and I want to help them do that. But the only way I could do that is if I'm honest with you. And what I'm going to tell you right now is so simple. Unless you're prepared to lose, you're never going to win. It's the same thing with blackjack. I have an edge. I'm an advantage player. I can't play at most of the places here in Las Vegas. And yet, I can't tell you that I could sit down at a table and after an hour I'm going to be ahead. I can't tell you that after 10 hours I'm going to be ahead. But what I can tell you, and this much I promise you, that after 100 hours they have no chance of being ahead on me. There's no chance at all. Zero, none. I mean, the probability of them being ahead of me after 100 hours is so slim, I don't think in one lifetime it'll happen, because of the fact I'm going to see so many hands. And eventually the law of big numbers takes over, and my edge is going to grind out a profit as long as I recognize my edge and bet accordingly. And it's the same thing with sports. Over 20 bets, yeah, I might go 15-5, and I may go 5-15. In the long run, I'm going to forget all about that. But I know that if I put in 1,000 plays, I'm going to be ahead of them. Or if I put in 100 plays, more times than not, you should be ahead of them. 500 plays, something like that, you should be ahead of them. That's what it comes down to. And unless you could approach it like that, you're never going to make money. My game of the year lost. It sucked. It was awful. I bet more than I should have, and it stung. But I'm going to tell you what bothered me most was knowing that other people lost money, and it was people that may not have been with me since January 1st of last year. So maybe they weren't up 70, 80 units, which I was at that time for the year. Or maybe they weren't with me for the whole football season. Maybe they just jumped on at that time. And I understand it sucks for you because you didn't get to build that bankroll like we did to be able to overcome that loss. But what I can promise you is this, that if you do stick to it and you don't let that one bad weekend, that one bad game, change your whole opinion of being able to beat this market, then come talk to me. Let's do this webinar a month from now after I've given out another 100, 150 plays, and you will be ahead. I know I have an edge. I know with the time and effort that I put in now, the context I have with the minimal distractions, that I know I'm going to make money doing this, or else I'd be doing those distractions. I'd still be putting in more time with blackjack. I'd still be involved in other businesses. But right now I know that it's set up perfectly for me to make money, and anyone that's with me is going to make money as well. But if you can't overcome losing, guys, you're not going to ever win money. I mean, it's math. It's simple math. It's if you give 100 plays, yeah, and you have an edge, you probably will be a little ahead. But there's going to be times where you're not. There's going to be times when you're 40 and 60. But if you do have an edge, when you get closer to 500 plays, I guarantee you're going to be closer to that 300 wins and 200 losses. It's like flipping a coin, bro. If you flip a coin 10 times, you may get 9 heads, 1 tails. But you flip that bitch 1,000 times, you're going to get closer to 500, 500. That's the law of big numbers. There's no way around that. So if you're looking to just get rich quick and make a score, then go gamble. Take a shot. And know that they have an edge going in. And if you won, you're lucky. And if you do win, then hang it up, because you ain't going to make money doing that long term. Don't ever bet again. But if you do want to do it as an investment, then understand you're going to lose. Understand you got to manage your money correctly. Understand you can't overbet, and at the same time you can't underbet. I think one of the biggest mistakes bettors make is underbetting. And that's why I say I've minimized my volume and I've maximized my bet size. I'm going for those plays that I think have the greatest edge, and I think that's why I've been able to win at this rate and at this percentage, which even for my industry is rare. To tell anybody that's a professional bettor to have a 59% season in football after 205 plays, they'd take it in a heartbeat. That much I can promise you. I would have been happy with 55.
Hey, Sugar Tits, we got I love the passion, and there's a reason that you've done more webinars with me than anyone else since we started these. The views, the feedback, everything is powerful. And because of that, there's a shit ton of questions we need to get to. So let's get right to the nitty gritty.
Give them to me.
I'm gonna take this one first, and I'm gonna hand it to you. And I think the best way to do it is me and you have a couple bullet points, unless it's something that needs to be elaborated on. Let's try getting through as many of these as possible, because there's a bunch of them. Jamie wants to know, can you talk a little bit about money management? I'll take this one first. And this is twofold. My advice is this. Is Dr. Ed Meyer, the guy at the site, he's a real doctor. He's actually the head of the physics department at Baldwin-Wallace University. He has a PhD in physics. He's done stuff for the Cleveland Indians. He wrote an article on the flight parameters when Cecil Fielder hit one over the roof at the old Tiger Stadium, and when Jose Canseco hit one into the sky deck in Toronto. I mean, the stuff that he's done. He's been kicked out of the Monte Carlo for counting cards and blackjack. He was in New Yorker magazine. He was the first one, almost like I forgot the guy's name, that came up with the basic count and blackjack. Dr. Ed Meyer was the first one to come up with systems to beat NFL teasers based on what key numbers were and whatnot. As he has a new book out, it's called Money Management and Winning NFL Handicapping. It's actually the second edition, so it's an update to an older book by Dr. Ed Meyer. You can email me at johnny@pregame.com. I'll tell you where to get that. And what I can do is maybe reach out to Ed and say, hey, if they PayPal you the money, since there's no middleman, can you get him a better deal and ship it out to him? That's how I did it. So just to take one excerpt from a quarter of this book, and it's pretty complex. He does all these graphs and shit that just made me think of school, so it's hard for me to read. I ain't gonna lie, I skimmed the money management part, and I'll get to that in a second. And I skipped right ahead to his NFL teasers and key number section, which will blow your freaking mind. He says, as we have seen, the optimal F for a 54-46 record is 3.4%, and the optimal F for a 60-40 record is 16%. So a 60-40 handicapper should be betting 4 to 5 times as much per play as a 54-46 handicapper if they have the same bankroll. So essentially what he is saying is if you're over 100 plays, you end up 54 and 46, you should be betting 3.4% of your bankroll. Almost like you said, VR, when you got an edge, you could be risking more of your bankroll. Now, the reason why I'm not an expert at saying this, and this is, I just have to be honest, I'm not going to bullshit anyone listening. I've never in my life followed any bankroll rules. And the reason why is since I do so much middling and scalping and futures, and because a lot of connections that I have, and it really sucked when all those pinna clouds got close, is I basically had unlimited credit everywhere. So if I would get a 4 point move in a college basketball total and I was getting rebates and reduced juice, I was able to bet 5, 10, 15, 20,000 aside, and I was only risking, 500 to $1,000 if the juice. And then if I hit it, it was a major score. And then once I hit the score, then I would take that money and I'd put it into action on actual sides and totals. But I always built my bankroll on my own using their credit with a bankroll that I had to cover the juice, and knowing with the math on my side for what the value of the numbers were, once I hit a score, that became my bankroll because now I was pressing with their money. So I was never one to sit and have this big bankroll and bet 2%. Because this is me being honest. I'm inherently inside. I love the action and the junkiness too much. I don't look at it as winning 1,000. And that guys like Dr. Ed are probably cringe when they hear this. I look at it that I'm not making 5. So to me, I rather take the math to my advantage, hit a big score. Now I got their money. Now I'm going to stick it in their ass, and I'm going to press and win as much as I possibly can on their dime. So, VR, I'm going to hand it over to you. What are your thoughts on money management before we go to the next question?
Listen, man, here's the thing, dude. I've heard so many different – if you read over the last 20 years, the stuff has been written on money management, it's going to drive you crazy. Everybody's got a different approach to it, and it's just like I experienced with blackjack. I've bumped into when you're playing advantage blackjack, it's kind of funny. You bump into so many other people that are doing the exact same thing, so many other teams, and you know it because of the moves they're making, and they know what you're doing because of some of the moves you're making, and it becomes kind of this underground community. And speaking with so many people, just like with that, they have so many different approaches, from you should only be betting a half Kelly unit, a quarter Kelly unit, a full Kelly unit, if you have this big of a bankroll, or that size bankroll. So at the end of the day, man, there's a million different approaches on what you should be betting. And I've heard the rule of thumb, you shouldn't bet more than 3% on any one game. You shouldn't expose more than 20% of your bankroll on any one day, and all that stuff. Here's the thing. Everyone's situation is different. And the way I look at it is this. What do you have a replenishable bankroll? Meaning, if you start off with the NFL season and you start off with a bankroll of $1,000 and you say, you know what, I'm going to start betting $50 a game. And, that's 5%. And I'm just going to flat bet everything, okay? If you have a replenishable bankroll, meaning if you lose that 1,000, you could take another 1,000 and go back to work and keep betting, you're fine. But if you don't, and that's your last 1,000, then obviously betting 5% on a play is too much, because of the fact you are going to have some tough stretches. So with that, it is one of those questions where it depends. The only thing I can say is you need to bet the amount that, A, isn't going to devastate you if you lose, number one, and if you win, isn't going to make you do something stupid, as if, now I need to bet this much all the time. This is what I need to be betting. I should be betting more and expose too much of your bankroll. So I think for everyone it's different, man. I wouldn't waste my time and tell you, oh, this is what you should be doing. Me personally, I've been doing this so long. I've built such a bankroll where I could get over any fluctuation. And based on my bankroll, the amount that I bet is so small where I wouldn't even tell someone that only has a 10-grand bankroll to bet that amount, because it may not even be worth their time. So that's why the question's so hard, Johnny. It's like I don't want to point anyone in the wrong direction. But what I am saying is what you should do is minimize the amount of plays you have, because that's going to minimize your exposure, and just try to isolate the plays that you think you could overcome the VIG. So that means if you got to pass on Sunday Night Football, you pass. If you got to pass on Monday Night Football, you pass. You do those things. That allows you to bet more on those plays that you do have an edge. Because at the end of the day,
instead of forcing the Monday Night Football game,
bro, what it comes down to, and I'm gonna give the example. Listen, I'm gonna give the example to blackjack. Here's what I learned after playing so many hours at some of the highest levels. I found this out. At the end of any weekend, at the end of any bankroll, at the end of any trip we worked, it came down to maybe anywhere between 5 and 10 hands. Our whole weekend was determined by those 5 or 10 hands. Well, now we may have played 500 hands in that weekend because you're going to see 100 hands an hour. So what am I saying? We were seeing 500 hands a day times 5 days. I was seeing 2,500 hands, and it came down to about 5 to 10 hands on whether we were going to leave winners or losers that weekend, because those were the hands we had the biggest bets at. So that's what you got to do with sports betting. You got to eliminate all those times that you're putting out money for no reason at all, and focus on those times when you should be betting money. And when you have an edge, don't be afraid to fucking fire. That's what I say. I fire, dude. I fire. I'm known for firing.
Steam.
I'm not afraid to fire. I'm not afraid to drop bombs, dude. I fire. And that's why. Tonight, like I said, I didn't bet NBA. I didn't bet college football because I'd rather sit back and fire. If you need action, you need volume, then I can't help you. But I don't know what advice to give you except to grind, and hopefully you have the discipline to overcome the sick fluctuations that come with grinding. Otherwise, you want to really make some money doing this, then just sit and pick your spots and take your and unload. I'm not saying you got 10,000 bankroll, you should bet 2,000 on a game. I don't mean anything like that. What I'm saying is you got 10 grand bankroll, you sit back, you wait, you pick your spots. You hit it, you find a big game, you pop a nickel on it, you hit it, or you pop a dime, you hit it. You're good for the week, man. There's people that work all week don't make $500. It's when we gamble we lose all value of money, and I think that's the problem. So I'm not going to tell you what to do because I myself don't have that kind of discipline. I've bet more than I should plenty of times. So I'm not one to preach unless I practice it.
I love when you drop bombs, VR. You know what? Makes me think of the Gap Band, the Steam.
I love it. Attaboy.
That's VR's theme song. If this was the 80s and he was a pro wrestler and he was called Vegas Runner, this would be like the song they'd play in the arena and shit before he walked.
Dude, you know me. I'm not afraid to fire, man. I love to fire.
All right, let's get to the next question. And like I said, this is another one. I'm going to steal your thunder really quick. And I'm going to answer this one real quick and then let you jump in if I missed anything. The question is, for college basketball, what offshore books would you recommend following to piggyback on steam moves? I guess what I want to know is where are the sharpest players betting, and what software applications do you use to track steam moves and reverse line movements? Real quick, it's in front of you right now. No disrespect to Don Best. I like sports options for two reasons. One is they got a really good amount of credit shops. Two, the owner, Rick Allen, I've known him since he was running Don Best. We're close friends. He's a legit guy, stand up as real as they freaking come in this industry. And I'm a loyal person, and even if Don Best was better, which I don't think it is, I think they're at par with each other, I would still endorse sports options. If you look at some of the books that I have, I don't know how good you could see this on the webinar. So I have Chris, Grande, Catalina, Five Dimes, Pinnacle Greek, Betkill, Low Vig, Player, Buckeye, Legends, and then it goes on and on. Is one sports options if you're looking to look at this kind of stuff. You can get a free trial if you go to sportsoptions.com/JD. That gives you a free week. In terms of books, like I said, you got your Grandes, your Greeks, your Chris. The only problem with that is everybody knows about those. There used to be one on here, and I'm waiting for Rick to get back to me. It was called Vegas Vic. Is what my best advice I can give you is, whether you're a Don Best guy or sports options guy, is do some trials and take as many of these books. You go, who are they? They're not like the Bet Onlines or the Bulldogs or Bovada, whatever the hell they call themselves today. The Low Vigs, the Buckeyes, these headshot places. Because a lot of times they take that sharp action, or they got sharp agents. And to be honest, I remember Vegas Vic, they were beating Pinnacle and Chris to moves. Is line up your screen with these books you've never heard of and start tracking. Okay, this book went from 6.5 to 6, 5.5, and then Chris moved. If you could find those places that nobody's watching, that's your best opportunity to track and follow steam moves. VR, go ahead and jump in if I missed anything.
Yeah, no, you nailed it perfectly on the head, man. And you know as good as I do which ones to use. So, I mean, move on from that. Let's just keep answering. That was perfect. That's right, exactly.
All right, so we're going to go to the next question. Mind you, there's a lot of these. Hey, Johnny. Okay, we already answered that one. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to fly through these as much as possible. I have so many emails today. Okay. Skip that one. Hold on.
I'm pissed I didn't get down on Southern against South Dakota. It went
Dude,
off
that was
at
my play.
6:30.
They win it. I didn't even look yet.
They're up. They're up 8. They're up 8. I put a little bit something
Up.
early.
That's college
They're up
basketball.
8 at the half, bro. They're up. It's like stealing. College basketball's been like stealing, man.
Dude, real quick, not to mess with the webinars, I was talking to a guy I know books offshore credit, and I told him, I said, dude, how are you guys even taking action right now? I said, these games are moving 2-3 points. Like UMass was 9, went to 11. The Detroit U total moved like 5 points. I said, you guys shouldn't even be taking bets until conference play. So here's the next question. So my question for the Vegas Runner webinar is this: how do you ignore what your eyes and brain are telling you and just bet numbers? For example, New Orleans is going to Oakland as a 4.5-point favorite. Everyone knows Oakland stinks, has little or no defense and even less offense. Granted, New Orleans has no defense either, but the offense has, with the exception of Denver, outperformed just about everyone. My simple brain tells me that if these teams, Oakland and the Saints, played each other 5 weeks in a row, New Orleans would win all 5 of them, and all their wins would be in double digits. I know the pros like to use their power ranking to cap the games, but at what point do you throw a power ranking or what the number should be out of the window and just use common sense that no matter what the math says, that this team is blatantly better than this team? Thoughts?
You want me to jump on that, Jay?
You can go first, boss, unless you want me to. You can go.
No, listen, man. Here's the thing. You got to trust your own numbers.
Exactly.
And you got to trust your own work. I always say there's guys that are really good at what they do. And the reason I've had success in this racket is because I've checked my ego at the door. And the reason I did that is because I got into the game so young and I didn't have a choice. And when I got into the game of moving steam, I'm not going to say I was one of the main guys. I was as low on the ladder as you get to get into the main office. So I was down at the bottom and had to work my way up. And when you're in that position, you listen and you learn a lot and you slowly move up. You get more outs. You get to play faster. It's a whole process. But with that said, I realized there were guys that had more experience than me. There were guys that were sharper than me. There were guys that were smarter than me. And there were some guys that were great at what they did. So instead of battling them, why don't I just learn from them? Why don't I just piggyback them? Why don't I just use their information, their network, their contacts? And that's what I've done. And because of that, although I trust my own work, because I trust my own numbers, I'm not foolish enough not to want to gather information and not foolish enough to trust that sometimes these people know what they're doing. And you got to remember, odds makers, bookmakers, they back their opinions with cash. They're not just throwing it out there. They're not the BCS. They're not the AP. They're not the USA Today, where they're just, you could throw out an opinion, you rank them number 1, they lose the game, next week you put them in 18th, it doesn't matter. It don't work like that in the betting market, because you move a team that too much like that, you're going to have a wise guy that's going to fire and take advantage of your mistake. So, that's why I say I trust them more. But with that said, if you really believe that your number's right and you really believe this team is the right side, then by all means, don't let anybody change your mind. Don't let me do it. Don't let the books looking like they want to take a position do it. Don't let the odds maker who made a 7-point favorite while you think that team should actually be a 1-point dog, well, usually they're not going to be 8 points wrong. But, with that said, I'm exaggerating a little bit. But you got to trust your numbers, or else you got no business doing this. And instead, just piggyback, and don't have an opinion.
And that's one of the things that, I've learned even more over the last couple of years. And, right now in the season, I'm 41-24 in football combined for 63%. This is essentially what I do is Chris and Frank and them in Vegas, they send me what they're playing. And, like, I sent you the image, 2-3 weeks ago. They went 39 games. Then I got another couple guys that power rate the whole board, and I take their power ratings, and then I compare. Do they have any matches to their games? And then it maybe gets me down to 15, 20 games. Then, then I check with some offshore guys, and it gets it down to maybe 10, 15 games. And then I go in and I do the old school, like what I call ESPN handicapping. What I'm guessing this question was is, the basic, their defense sucks, this team sucks, where it's what anybody can see on Sports Center by watching the game, and then I filter down. But there's a lot of games that by the time it gets to me where I got to use handicapping to even get to the 2-3 clients that I finally want to release, because one thing I've really learned in this business is giving my clients 39 games is not going to work, because if I could have a winning day overall, but if I say lose in the middle of the day, but won in the early part of the day, and then lose at night, where maybe the early day was hot, the middle of the day was bad, and the late was bad, but overall, because the early day was in the morning, I won, that they're going to press because I lost in the middle, and they're going to double their bets at nighttime. I just learned that you got to like be a little more selective on what you're releasing on paid clients. And my point is this, is there's a lot of games by the time it gets to me that based off my initial thoughts, I would never pick. That I would say, oh, there's no way that team is horrible. And I've actually called Chris or Frank and said, dude, how the hell, and I would regurgitate that shit you could see on SportsCenter. Like, their defense is this, their offense is this. And they'd throw a bunch of numbers at me that went into their power rating that aren't stuff that you really see on the surface of why they came up with that number. And to be honest, the most successful bettors that I've ever met in my life, a lot of times, couldn't tell you anybody on the teams. That they're pulling insane statistics, every kind of thing about the teams, scenarios, they're plugging it in, and it's producing a spread. And if there's a variance in their number and what the bettable line is, they're betting it, no questions asked. They don't give a shit if, so-and-so team has been looking like shit on Sunday or whatever it is. To them, you hear a lot of people say this, is they're betting numbers and not teams. So we'll go to the next question. Got anything to add, VR?
Nah. You're on point, baby. You are on point.
Oh, you just want to have another webinar. All right, this is kind of the same question, but it applies to a specific game you had, and this is just a great example. You know what I mean? And the thing is, why I wanted you to bring on, and VR will attest to this. I said, you know what? I refuse to let the haters out there dictate VR's brand and his image for a guy that's sitting close to 60% in football over 200 plays and has won 44 units based off a 1, 2, 3 unit scale to, bash him and dictate the conversation. So I said, you know what? I go, let's stick it right in the hater's ass and let's have a webinar talk about you losing and see, their fucking heads are going to explode. Like, oh my God, we can't bash him that he's like hiding that he lost. He actually did a webinar that's going to be fucking recorded talking about it. Real quick, Jeremy, the book is, I just got a quick pop-up question for one of the people watching. It's called Money Management and Winning NFL Handicapping by Dr. Ed Meyer. And my email is johnny@pregame.com. So the next question, VR, this is about one of your specific games. It says, how do you decide to take a bet where there's a conflict? Oh, you know what? That's the same kind of question. I'm sorry, Nick. I know your question was about power rankings, but we just went over that, so I'm going to have to skip over that one. So I apologize. And if you want me to get more detail on that, you could email me, and I'll forward it to VR. All right, VR, this is from a newbie. He wants to know, I haven't established what people would deem a bankroll yet. How do you establish a bankroll?
The thing is, you got to come to the plate with the bankroll, man. I mean, rob a liquor store. What do you want me to tell you? No, I'm just playing. Go to the bank. Why do you rob banks? They got all the money, right? Ain't what Dillinger said? But no, the truth of the matter is, you got to go with a bankroll. You're not just going to acquire one betting, or else you're taking a shot. And I don't suggest doing that to any book. But with that said, you acquire it from your work, it's just like, how do you acquire bankroll for stocks? You don't just find it. You save some money and you invest. How do you acquire bankroll to buy real estate? You save some money and you start buying real estate. How do you acquire money to open a business? You save some money and you open a business. It's the same with sports betting. It's just another business. So if you treat it like a business, I always say that. If you treat it like a business, it's going to pay you like a business. So how do you open a business? You acquire a bankroll. And with sports betting, whether you got to save a little bit each week from your work, from your paycheck, money that you were going to go out this week, you put a little bit of the sign, you cut a few corners, then all of a sudden you got a small bankroll there. And I'm not saying, you got to come to the plate with a ton of money, but you got to have some kind of bankroll. And based on your bankroll is what you're going to bet. If you're doing what I'm saying, but let me put it to you this way. This is the best way I could explain it. If you're going to open up a business with $1,000, how much do you expect that business to make you? If you're going to open up a business with $500, how much do you expect that business to make you? Unless it's a business that you're going to, risk 5 years, 10 years of your freedom, probably not much, right? if you're going to open up a business with $1 million, yeah, you're going to expect to make more money. It's the same with sports betting. If you start with a bankroll of $500, $1,000, you can't expect that you're going to make enough money where you don't have to work or do anything else. What business is going to do that for you?
Real
if it
quick,
is, I'll shut all my shit down.
On behalf of Pregame.com, I just want to say that Vegas Runner's suggestion of robbing a bank is not endorsed. Or it's his opinion. It has nothing to do with Pregame.com. And if you decide to rob your local bank, Vegas Runner is solely responsible for what he said. But real quick, before we go to the next question.
Am I right? Like, that's what it is, bro. What business? Are you open a bit? If you build a 10-grand bankroll, then you should expect to make a little more.
Either put aside cash or something that, you know what, I've known people to do is if you feel confident that you could win, it's a business. Write it up. Write up your scenarios, your statistical model of why your number's better, your past data of doing back data of your filters of when you could win, and go to someone you know with cash and say, look, here's the data. This is beatable. I need a banker. Let's partner up. Poker players do it. Businesses get angel investors. If you can't explain to somebody why you could win or you found someone that can win, then you shouldn't be betting. So next question. With all the quarterbacks going down, how does this affect the playoff picture? Well, Spencer, real quick, I'm going to let VR answer that, but I'm going to say what it does is it really affects the playoff picture of my $1,000 fantasy league because I had Big Ben, and I was one game away from locking up my playoff spot, and him going down and not scoring the rest of the game cost me, and now I am stuck with that skeleton guy for Arizona for my dash to make the playoffs. So, VR, with the quarterbacks going down, how does this affect the playoff picture?
I'll be honest with you. To me, it's pretty much irrelevant. I mean, I have some futures, and I have in the AFC I got Texans and Steelers, so obviously it affects me. In the NFC, I got Eagles and Saints. It really don't affect me because neither of those teams are going to win the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, Houston's going to win more than 10 games. That's going to cover that bet. But I don't look at it how it's going to affect the playoff picture because I'll be honest with you, man. I'm not even going to waste your time. I'm not a real don't get me wrong, I love sports. I watch sports, that's all I do. But I'm not looking at things like that. That's ESPN, that's NFL Network. Those are guys that cover the teams, and that's what they talk about. For me, it's about what's going to happen this Sunday. If I could take advantage of the injured quarterback situation as far as futures, then yeah, I'm going to look in the futures market and see which teams do have healthy quarterbacks. Are they a little undervalued, and how could I maybe take a position on these teams because the other quarterbacks are injured? I think that's what you should be looking at. But otherwise, I'm looking to take advantage of the injured quarterbacks by actually backing these teams in spots where I think the market's overreacted.
Exactly.
A perfect example was New York Giants, Carolina Panthers, Thursday Night Football, maybe week 3, maybe week 4, I can't remember, early on. Giants opened as a favorite, I believe. Before you know it, they had all the injuries, the wide receivers out, running backs out. What do you know? Carolina becomes the favorite. What happens? Giants blow them away. And you know why? Because of the fact players step up.
Exactly.
When you have an injury, you know you got to show up. That's the bottom line. If Peyton Manning's hurt, the rest of the team's got to show up. And I think you get a better effort, and the overreaction in the marketplace gives you value on the line as well. So now you have a team that's motivated to give you a bigger effort, and you're getting more points than you should have. I'm willing to back those teams before I'm looking to fade them.
I don't think that I've ever, in the NBA, bet, I'd get an alert on my sports options about an injury, and, the book would adjust, and the public would hear it on SportsCenter, so they think they had inside information, which, I hate to break anyone's bubble. If you're seeing it on a ticker at the bottom of SportsCenter, it's not like inside information anymore. The market would overreact. I don't think I ever hit one of those middles because of the fact, like you said, is the other team, for the most time, you could take that other team because the book makes the initial adjustment. Then the public hammers it because they think that they're, taking advantage of the book because so-and-so's not playing. And then the number gets even more inflated. And then you could turn around and you can get value. Hold on 1 second before we go to the next question. I'm a junkie, dude. I need to see how my Southern game's going. Southern's up 8 in the second half. Loving it. All right, hold on. Let's get to the next question. The How do you guys like Tampa Bay for the rest of the year? -1.5 against Carolina seems a steal. Am I missing something? My opinion on Tampa is this. I picked up Mike Williams on most of my fantasy teams very early in the season. I think that their offense is very impressive. But one key stat a lot of people don't realize, look what Oakland did to them. The previous question brought up how Oakland sucks so bad. The fact is Tampa Bay's defense is putrid. So the fact is, if they play a team that could run and gun plus has a good defense, they're in a lot of trouble, in my opinion. I think that they're all show. I like Tampa Bay, but the thing is if they get a team with some decent corners, Tampa Bay is not going to be able to stop anybody. And if they have to play a team that's good on both sides of the ball, I think they get beat. So that's just my opinion. VR, your thoughts?
Bro, it's exactly what you said. What's there to dwell on that for? Go on.
All right.
Go on.
All right. What's killing me is these three dimes.
When you're on point, I'm just gonna say next. We can't waste these people's time, man.
What's killing me is this: these 3 dime and 2 dime bets. What does it technically mean? Hypothetically speaking, if my bankroll is 1,000 and 1 unit or 5% for me is 50, and a 3 dime bet is equal to 150, 2 dime bet equals 200. Well, you kind of have it in reverse because it would be a 1 bet would be the 50, then the 2 dime. It's based off your bankroll. Kind of goes back to the beginning of the money management. Is a 1, 2, and 3 unit bet, and it goes to what VR said is on average you're going to have your 1 unit bet, which is going to be what you mathematically have figured as 1 unit per percentage on what your hypothetical bankroll is, up to 3. And the thing is that's more of a gauge for us. And to be really frank with that, is I think there's some interpretation of what you deem your units to be and what you feel comfortable with and the type of bettor you are. One of the reasons we wanted to stick to like a basic rating scale at Pregame is have a regular play, a top play, and what would be considered a special or game of the year quality type selection. And we didn't want to be one of those pay sites, because let's be frank here, we do sell picks, and we have to have some of the platform that people are accustomed to. But we didn't want to have like other people have, 1 up to 100 unit play. That's such bullshit. Some dude, fires 5 1-star plays, he's 0-5, and then he releases a 40-star game of the year, wins, and now he sends out a flyer to people's houses saying he's up 37 units in football. That's just bullshit. With the 1, 2, and 3 rating scale in me and RJ's minds, it keeps the pros, I don't want to say check like they'd be shady, but it keeps their units and it keeps their betting and it keeps everything more realistic in terms of what's going on. VR, do you have any thoughts on our rating scale?
No, I agree. What we try to do is, kind of set a standard. Obviously, it's not law. It's not something everybody should be following. It's like anything else in life. There's certain guidelines, certain things you put out, and it's easiest for some people to follow that specifically. If you don't have discipline, if you don't have the experience, if you don't, that's what's going to pretty much be in your best interest to keep it that simple. But then there's other people that take things to another level and another level and another level, and for them it's got to be a little more complex. There's got to be a little more, elasticity in what you do and being able to maximize profit, maximize return, take advantage of an edge. But I think it's a great rating system because you're actually going from 1 to 3. So you're going 3x, you know what I mean? And from one unit to 2 unit, you're actually putting double the amount of money on your bet. And from 2 units to 3 units, you're putting, 1.5 amount your bet. So it's not even that huge of a jump. So you have the big jump between 1 and 2, the smaller jump between 2 and 3, and then you have a huge jump between 1 and 3, which is 3x. Personally, I'd be lying to you if I tell you I haven't gone 10x on a bet myself. But again, like I said, for some people, it's best to just keep things safe, keep things simple, and make sure they don't hurt themselves, because this could be very dangerous. This could be entertainment, it could be fun, it could be profitable, all of the above, but it can also be dangerous, and we try to protect people as much as possible from themselves.
Exactly. We have time for one more question. We're going to get to the coupon, and I'm going to let VR close and tell us what's going on for the weekend. And you know what? One of the things that Pregame is, this webinar is all about information sharing. I mean, we haven't sat and said, hey, by the way, call the offices now. Get 2 months of Vegas Runner absolutely free. If you don't go 600-0, you're going to get $1 million. It's some bullshit scam stuff. This is straight information. So I do want to show VR some love, and at the very end, give them a minute or so to talk about the weekend. So one last question. Can you tell me if you guys or many pros trade in the markets such as Betfair or the Asian markets? I personally don't. I know some of the bigger pros do, and I know specifically some of the bigger offshores that cater to sharp action. I know a guy that was I think he was number 3 at Pinnacle at one point. He's told me stories of that Pinnacle. The reason they gave the rebate in horse racing is because they were laying off all that horse racing action and getting a bigger rebate through this giant Asian book that made Pinnacle look like the local phone dude with 6 clients. I mean, these Asian books are sick. The amount of money that they handle, what these Asians are betting. I mean, their market. I mean, we could chant USA, USA all we want, but in Europe and Asia, there are so much more sophisticated bettors than we are. When I talk arbitrages and scalping, the majority of the people have no clue what I'm talking about. If you Google arbitrage and scalping, almost any site that you find that talks about it, or has calculators or services that provide you with arbitrages, they're all in Europe. I mean, that's like a common thing over there because there's so many options to bet. There's people that literally make a living just scalping and middling over there. And over there, that's your average bettor. So what we're going to do is, real quick, for everybody that joined us tonight, use coupon code Vegas10. They'll take $10 off any one purchase in the next 72 hours. Anything you want to buy within the site could be a daily, it could be a weekly, whatever you want. Free $10 just for watching. Before we close out, my kids are upstairs getting antsy. I could hear them through the vent and working out of the home office. So you got 3 kids. It's how Johnny Detroit rolls. VR, real quick, I'm going to hand it off to you. We started off. We were honest with the people. You lost your game of the year. We didn't hide it. You came on here, so you're as stand up and manly as they come in a non that kind of way. So, are you excited about this weekend? What's going on with you? And if I'm someone looking to spend money at Pregame, why should I buy Vegas Runner? And I'm going to let you take us out.
Oh, because you like money is why you should buy me. But nah, in all seriousness, man, I've had a terrible 2 weeks of football. It's no secret. From when I lost the game of the year the previous week, and even this week, I had a losing college football, a losing NFL week. So I've been bad the last 2 weeks, but I don't think that's going to continue. I mean, I saw coming into the season up until those 2 weeks, I was really on point. I was seeing the market very clearly. And I was very confident these last 2 weeks. It's just it didn't go my way. I was on the wrong side. I don't blame bad beats. I don't make excuses. I mean, obviously, sure, some of the things, they don't cooperate. Things don't go your way. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, I've gotten crushed in football the last 2 weeks. Fortunately, I've done well in college basketball. I'm doing well year to date. And, we're able to overcome that, those who are long-term clients. But those that have been in the short term, sure, it hasn't been a good 2 weeks for you. And I apologize. The only thing I can tell you is that I've put in the work, and I bet every one of my games. So nobody feels the pain as more than I do. But looking forward, I really feel good about this weekend. I've already isolated some plays. I've already uploaded an early Steam play that we got the best of the number. I'm going to be extremely selective in college and NFL. Don't forget there's UFC 154. And, I've killed it. I think 68% over the last 25 fight picks because I'm selective there. And ever since getting the gig for Gaming Today, I've developed a network in boxing and MMA that I've never had before. I would have never been able to say that I'm that confident when I make a bet as when I started doing that with Gaming Today. And, of course, we got some basketball as well. So we got so much to choose from, baby.
Yeah, real quick, is for people who don't know what he's talking about, there's a publication that's in all the casinos all over Las Vegas, all over Nevada. It's a gaming publication, and Vegas Runner is actually their mixed martial art and boxing writer. So he writes and follows all these guys, has the connections. They want to be in the magazine. Obviously, a lot of the people are training in Vegas and whatnot. Sorry, it's my 2-year-old got tired of daddy working, so she's sitting on my lap. So sorry for the coughing, but that's who I am. I got 3 kids, bitches. Just deal with it. So that's what he's talking about the gaming today. He's actually their boxing and mixed martial arts writer for them. So besides his own handicapping and betting, he's opened up a whole nother stream of networks and connections through these contacts. So Vegas Runner, I want to say I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everybody who joined us. I love the fact, like I said, Randy's like, who are you going to use in the webinar this week? And I said VR, and he looked at me, and I go, dude, I said, he's been hot all year. He had a bad week. I said, if he hides, it's just going to give the haters ammunition. He's up 40 units. He's 59%.
Hide, I'm pounding my chest, boy.
Yeah, you should have a T-shirt, but like I'm up 40. Autumn, it's okay if to pound his chest, honey. You should have a T-shirt that says I'm up 40 units, bitches, and I can say bitches to my kid knows that's a bad word. So that's gonna do it. I'm Johnny Detroit, the People's Champ. He's Vegas Runner. Bye, say bye to Vegas Runner. Say bye, Vegas Runner.
All right, pal. Bring him out here. Bring him out.
All right, VR. I think everyone's watching. I'm going to be converting this and uploading this, so this will be archived. It'll be at the forums. If there's anything, party. She knows it's you, Vegas Runner. Okay, you got to stop talking now. All right, I appreciate everyone watching. I'm Johnny Detroit. That's going to do it. Take care.